Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the stream. We are set to have a very action-packed week in the market. But Tom, before we talk about what's going on with stocks this morning, we have to cover what's going on with Bitcoin. It just crossed above $40,000 per coin. It's starting to pop up. You look at this chart and it just kind of has that explosive movement right now. So, stocks like Riot and Mara are uptrending in pre-market right now. But I think it's great to see Bitcoin starting to finally really come back.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually really breaking out above that $40,000 level, which has been pretty big for it. And I actually really like this move this morning. Like you said, it's actually getting that explosive type of movement back to it. And there was actually some great news over the weekend where they're going to be changing up Bitcoin a little bit. I actually don't know too much about the situation, but overall really brought some positive momentum into Bitcoin. And I really like to see a chart like this. It's just awesome to see this type of like explosiveness, like you said, to the upside. It's just awesome to see out of crypto, which has really been lagging behind or going down over the past few months, quite a bit. I know that Bitcoin was around 60,000 and fell down somewhere to around 30,000. It's just bouncing off that support over the past couple of days.
Alrighty, so I know CRSR is exploding. We have A saying CRSR, it's up around 25% today. It has a lot of momentum heading into the market this week. Even looking at it on the daily, it has a huge gap up, and its all-time high isn't until like right around like 51. You can say if we go to like a 180 day, the all-time high is like right around 52.34. But definitely keep your eye on CRSR. One for momentum play, but two just for maybe even a long-term hold. But it really is popping.
Yeah, I've always liked this stock. Anything to do with gaming or that type of sector is awesome. CRSR is honestly a really good bounce here. It bounced right off this bottom support around $30 quite a few times, and it just gapped up. And we're starting to see a lot of these growth stocks like this maybe not start to gap up quite as much as this one, but they're all starting to really like they're all starting to pop, over the past couple of weeks. Like we saw Zoom start to fly up, we saw DraftKings flying back up, and we just started to see a whole bunch of different stocks like that start to like really gap up or have big moves back to the upside. It's just awesome to see this going on with CRSR as well.
Yeah, and then so we had the market actually, or at least a SPY. It did break all-time highs in pre-market, but now I know the market's only been open for like a minute, but now it's starting to pull back a little bit. This candle looks a little rough, to start the week. I know that we have a lot going on with Powell, and then the meme stocks, as people say, and even Bitcoin popping up. I think we're definitely in for a big week. But I don't like the way the SPY is moving right now.
Yeah, I don't either, Mike. I mean, this is kind of crazy, actually. It seems like every day that the market opens, the SPY has been down lately. Like, just look at this on my chart. Ever since like last Monday, the SPY open, red again, open, green like for like the first couple of candles, and then huge red, and then more red at open again. And it's just, I don't know why the SPY keeps dying off at market open, but it's good that it keeps getting bought up. I think it's good that it's kind of hit a top up here around 425. So you can use that as a nice upper level, for today. But yeah, this is just not good news. And, I wonder if there's like a type of catalyst causing this with the SPY. I mean, I'm going to look into it a little bit further, but I'm wondering if people are getting scared about that FOMC meeting coming up on Wednesday, because Powell will be talking at that press conference. And of course, that's going to definitely move the markets, I think, this week. And the Fed should be addressing inflation and stuff like that.
So, Tom, I look at the SPY right now, intraday. It has a pretty big red candle, but then check out some stocks like VIAC. That one is starting to pop up pretty well intraday. I think that's awesome. Some other stocks are like Tilray, that's starting to pop up. And even BABA is trying to run. So, I do think this is good. Like, while there is some selling pressure to start the week with the overall market, it's not like everything is just completely crashing. Like, we are seeing like a little bit of a rotation, you can say. So I do like that. VIAC is definitely on my watch list. And let's get right into some of these questions. So good morning, Hunter, A, Matthew, Matt, Justin, Russ, Carlos, and Blaze. Thank you guys so much for joining the stream. Let us know what stocks you're watching. But we have Matthew saying, good morning, check out NIO. So NIO is it's very flat, you can say. Like, it tried to run up and then it tried to run down, but it's not really doing anything right now. Technically, it's up very, like, just a little bit on the day. I really like it for the long term. They had a huge day on Friday, so I really wouldn't be surprised if we did see a pullback, and I kind of feel the same way with Zoom. It's one of my favorite plays in the market right now. I love it for the long term, and I even love it for the short term. But when you have a 5, 6, or 7% up day, you kind of just have to be prepared for those pullbacks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those types of pullbacks are always going to happen in the market, of course. And like you said, there's just so much upside potential, and there's been so much upside since the bottom supports that, I mean, a little bit of pullback here and there is kind of expected, but it could still honestly keep going up later today. We'll just have to see how it ends up moving. But like, especially if we end up seeing like the SPY, for example, start to turn around and maybe head back up towards its highs as well. But it still looks like the SPY is just having some trouble today, of course. And then what about like we've been seeing a lot about like lumber and oil lately. So like slash LBS is actually starting to have some red candles today as well. And this has just been a huge stock been going up, or not stock, I should say, but a huge like commodity being lumber. And it's been helping some stocks like Home Depot and Lowe's, which have kind of been pulling back as well. And you can just see how big these pullbacks can be after some of these after these big rises.
Alrighty, and then let's see. We have with the next comment, we have Matt saying Bitcoin jump from HF endorsement. Russ saying good morning to all of you, and good morning to AMC. Let's check out AMC, Tom. I know we have a lot of people watching it. It's up 9% today. Intraday, it's starting to run up. It had an amazing candle at open. It's looking pretty decent, actually. Like it's holding its ground on the daily, intraday too, and it's starting to run up. But guys, just please be careful if you plan on playing options with this. The implied volatility is extremely high, so you can be bullish on AMC, but be smart about it. You know what I mean? Like, don't buy an option that is 200% out of the money that expires next week. You know what I mean? Like, be smart. If you want to trade options, make sure they are a quality option. And if you can't afford a quality option, shares would definitely be a lot safer. But Tom, what are you thinking of AMC stock right now? It's starting to run up. It's up around 9%. What's the next level to watch out for?
Yeah, I think I see a huge level at $55, and we're actually getting pretty close to there, about 1 point off. And it looks like 55 was definitely hit a few times. After $55, look at $60 that it hit off of there, and $60 is going to be much more defined. But overall, good moves out of AMC today. I really like it off of that recovery that we saw on Friday. That was not a bad day by any means. It ended up kind of like double bottoming down here around $42 and just popping right back to the upside. And honestly, if we start to see more momentum with this, it could be a good stock to watch. I mean, it's just been sitting right between $40 and $60 for a couple of weeks now, just kind of like trying to wait to go back up. And I think if it can start to really break out above 60, we'll start to see a good move. But definitely look out for some of these overhead resistances. And like Mike said, be very careful, because even if AMC starts to go down just a little bit, like from 55 down to 53, it's not too big of a move on the chart, but on the option, that'll probably be like a 20 or 25% move within a very small amount of time.
Tom, you have to check out Tesla right now. We're finally starting to see like some explosive movement like we used to. So I know it's technically only up like 2% right now. And then we have Jerry saying Tesla. But yeah, I mean, it's up a little bit right now, but the candle intraday is pretty big. And the daily chart, in my opinion, looks like it definitely has potential to rise. So definitely keep your eye on Tesla. Implied volatility is relatively low. And I think that we're definitely due for a bounce back up on Tesla.
Yeah, me too. I mean, if we can keep this kind of momentum, it's going to be great. We might even start to see like a big like green day or big type of like gap to the upside. We've seen that with Tesla where they post a lot of like big running days, and I would not be surprised if we saw that. I'm really curious to see like what's going to go on with Tesla, because there's been like Michael Burry who was shorting it. It's also holding up above this $600 support. So overall, I mean, it looks like a great buying opportunity. And, I have a feeling a bunch of money is going to be flowing into some of these stocks like this that have been beaten down over the past few months.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Then we have Blaze saying AMD is going down. Let's check it out. Yeah, AMD is kind of tanking this morning. I'm not sure if there's news with that or just because the overall market had a little bit of a red open. But yeah, I don't see any major news on AMD. It is coming down to support at like $80.50. After that, it does have a pretty strong support at like $80. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, AMD is really consolidated between $80 and $82 over the past 2 weeks. I mean, it's pretty much just traded completely flat between there. It definitely looks like it's going to continue down though today. I wonder if it'll be able to hold $80 or if it will continue down, but man, it definitely is not looking good today at open. I mean, that's pretty much straight down off of AMD, and just keep in mind that there's lots of news with semiconductors, so that could be part of it as well. Plus, we're seeing Nvidia down, and I believe Qualcomm is actually up slightly, but it looks like they're all catching red at the moment.
All right, so we have Russ saying Riot is taking off. Let's look at Riot intraday. It is like actually really exploding. It's up around 15%. Jerry saying Amazon. You look at that candle intraday on Amazon, Tom. That's a power candle. It shows like a lot of buyers are coming in, and I just think it's like we're in like a very interesting market right now where you look at the SPY and you see it kind of selling off a little bit, but then you look at certain stocks and like they have that explosive potential. And when I say that, we're talking about Amazon, Riot. You can even say Palantir intraday today, VIAC. I mean, even a couple other ones that I'm missing, Tilray even, So yeah, Tesla was the one. So Tesla. So overall, we're just seeing an interesting market. But overall, I think there should definitely be some opportunities this week, especially with the FOMC. We have Spacely saying, hit that like button. Let's go. Tom and I really appreciate it when you guys hit the like button. It really helps us out. But we have Kay saying, look at Shop. So if we take a look at Shop, it is popping up. And here's another example. We see the market kind of like selling off a little bit, but then Shop's running up. And I really wouldn't be surprised if we see Shop pop up on the daily over the next couple weeks too.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It's actually at a good support here. It hit like right off of like $1,200, which was an awesome level for it. It also was like trading right on that SMA as well, holding its ground and moving right back to the upside, which is generally a pretty good sign. It's hit off of a resistance coming up around $1,300 about two other times in the past. So watch out for that as we start to move up. But overall, really good movement. I'm with you, Mike. It looks like it could be a pretty good swing, actually. Even if you didn't trade options, I think shares with this one could be decent, trading it from like 1266 up to 1500. But I would definitely go ahead and look at the options for it, of course, and just be careful of that resistance coming up around 1300. It's pretty defined there.
All righty, and then we have Matt saying watching GLD. We have Jerry saying, I got to grab some QQQ calls. We're exploding. Let's check it out. QQQ, it's bouncing right back up, like the SPY is lagging just a little bit, but it's definitely bouncing back up. Jerry, I spent a couple hours over the weekend just like analyzing some options activity from the smart money, and from what I can tell, the smart money is not expecting the market to pull back anytime soon. I mean, I don't know. It's just something I've noticed, and we are set to have a pretty volatile week because who knows what Powell's going to say or how the market will interpret it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of potential, and like we just talked about, like we're starting to see some of these stocks start to pop back up, and especially Tesla. So good stuff there. And then we have Click saying today will be Apple Day. How's Apple doing, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it was initially going down at open, but it looks like it really recovered back to the upside, which is awesome to see. And it's starting to move up to that like resistance around 128.15, 128.50. So hopefully it can keep going up and keep this momentum. And like you said, it seems like the QQQ and like a lot of these tech stocks are really turning around today, and they're starting to post a lot of green candles. So I'm wondering if the overall market is really going to start to pop back up. We're going to have to see how it goes, but like you said, the QQQ is definitely moving back to the upside pretty well today.
Alrighty, and then let's see. With the next comment, we have Shelby saying thoughts on NIO and CLNE. I like NIO for the long term. Wow, I didn't even see that, Tom. So you know how we were talking about it, like pulling back a little bit, like 10 minutes ago. Look at that intraday chart on NIO.
Yeah, wow.
No, NIO, Tom.
Oh, I
NIO.
thought you said CLNE.
Nope.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, NIO does look pretty good intraday, but look at that move back to the downside now over the past couple of minutes. Hopefully we can start to rip back up right now, but that's a pretty good breakout this morning. So I'd like to see it hold and keep ripping up because Mike, that started to really break out above that high of Friday, and we're kind of consolidating on it right now. So that's honestly a really good looking chart. And whenever we look at that daily, even, I mean, it's starting to really fly up there. So I see some solid resistance, maybe around $50, and we're quite a ways away from there, actually.
All right. So I like NIO for the long term. For the short term, it's definitely not bad. CLNE, I'm just kind of neutral on that one. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's amazing. And then we have Dennis saying Snap is going. Let's check it out. Snap is going. It's up around 1.5% today. You can say it's struggling a little bit intraday because it is right at that resistance at 65. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, Snapchat's been pretty good. I'm a little bit worried about it because it's like right at resistance, like right now. There's a pretty solid one, like right around like 65.50, 65.70ish area. Let me go to like the 90-day, 15-minute and see like if I can find a more defined level up there. But yeah, let's see. Somewhere like right around 66 seems like it's like right around the high. So we're getting kind of close to that. So that's my main concern is just how close we are there. But if it starts to really break out, it could be a pretty good move. And honestly, like we're seeing tech and a whole bunch of stuff start to fly up, and I wouldn't be surprised if Snapchat kind of followed along.
All right, and we have Sam saying Square is moving up too. So I'm glad you pointed this one out, Sam. I was watching this one for like a couple weeks now, specifically at the give me 1 second. I was watching it at that 200 support, and I think it's awesome the way it's bouncing up. I think they're a great company, and they're still in that like lower to mid part of their range between 200 and $280. So their next major resistance isn't until right around 280. So I think that there definitely is potential for this one, especially if like tech stocks in general keep like moving up the way they are. I think there's definitely a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think that there is too. I mean, Square is definitely in there, and I've heard that Square does pretty well also whenever Bitcoin does well. So it's good to see Bitcoin going up as well again. And I kind of forgot about Bitcoin this morning, but let's go see how
What?
they're doing. Yeah. Well, I just mean we haven't talked about it in a
Yeah.
few minutes, and
Yep.
it's moving up above 40,000 here this morning with a pretty good move, up above like 40,500. And man, it was looking really hot this morning. We are catching a little bit of red like in the past couple minutes, which is fine. It's up quite a bit today, but this is just awesome to see this nice recovery out of Bitcoin, Mike. I mean, we've kind of been waiting for it for a while, and it's been just getting beat down almost like a lot of these growth stocks. And I feel like a lot of money saw that kind of like opportunity where a lot of these other stocks like a lot of tech stocks, for example, and just like overall like Caterpillar and a lot of these value stocks were like at all-time highs, like banks and everything. But then we had Bitcoin like at half off. So I think it brought in a lot of opportunities for a lot of people.
For sure. And then look at Mara and Riot. They're exploding intraday. Like you look at Riot, RIOT, they are up around, well, they were up 15% today, and they're just under that right now, but they're at their high a day. A ton of volume coming in. They're breaking out. It just goes to show you, like, the type of, like, I guess you could say influence Bitcoin has. But either way, I mean, it's awesome to see that move, and I'm glad that Bitcoin is popping back up. Then we have Adam saying, is Airbnb still a play? So Airbnb, I'm just watching it for now. I'm really watching it at like that 149.50 or even just 150 level. It keeps trying to break above that resistance and it just gets rejected. So Tom, do you have any like thoughts on Airbnb? Like I think the setup looks pretty good for like the daily, but if we can't break above this resistance, then it's just a dud.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if it fails to break out, then it just fails. You just have to like look at the chart and kind of trust the movement there. And I think that it will start to break out, though. I think it looks pretty good. If as long as it holds like the 140 support, also, I think for the longer run it'll be okay. But in the short term, definitely make it break out. It looks like it's trying to, but you can see how like it's definitely lagging behind the overall market today. Like we're seeing a lot of these tech stocks start to really fly up, and a lot of these high growth stocks. And this stock should start to move up off of some good news, but hopefully we can start to see it really break out because it seems like this stock's just kind of been lagging behind. And it's just one of those stocks, like when you look at it on the daily, it has a pretty good like recovery play type of setup, but just the type of sector they're in, being like a Airbnb, of course. So like that pretty much says what they are, but
Yeah.
it's kind of really one of those stocks in a strange sector, and they catch some weird news sometimes. Like we'll see stuff where sometimes they'll have like weird regulations against like hotels or something like that, and like we're seeing people still not traveling quite as much. So I think once like we finally get fully reopened, it'll get a lot better for Airbnb.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the stream. Tom and I would really appreciate it if you guys could hit that like button. It really helps us out, and it takes only a couple seconds. But really, thank you guys so much for joining the stream. We have Whitney saying Elon posted he can see taking Bitcoin again in the future, and it started moving last night. So great input there, Whitney. That's definitely great news for Bitcoin. We just have Airbnb moving up right now, and we have Jerry saying, Tom, can I get some Twitter analysis? What's going on with Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter's actually filling that gap. It's moving very nicely, starting to pull back a little bit on the 1 minute today. But whenever we go out to a Twitter max daily chart, I mean, they actually got killed the past couple months, but they created like a big gap on the chart and they started bouncing off support around $50. And ever since that support bounce, they've just been slowly filling the gap back to the upside, and looks like they're going to finally maybe break out and start to move like significantly to the upside here and finally like seal the deal on this gap fill, because it's been kind of just slowly going up the past few days, but looks very good now over the past day or two, especially today. Like we're seeing a lot of these tech stocks move up, and Twitter really moved up through that $61 resistance today.
All right, good stuff. And then we have Vicky saying, you please. So Unity. U is starting to pop up. I think it looks pretty good, Tom. It's up around 2.8% today. I think it looks pretty good for like maybe like a couple day or even like a couple week swing trade. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, right on a good support as well, slash resistance, right around $100. It's really holding its ground off of that. This almost reminds me of like a CRSR type of play, We're seeing like a bunch of solid bounces at support. It's in a great sector like gaming or technology in that sense. And it just looks like a very good type of setup here, especially off those supports. It's a long way away from highs as well. So you could even get a nice like little bounce up to 114, which would be almost like no movement on the chart, considering it could go up to 174. So there's honestly a lot of like realistic types of moves that you could make. I think it's a great pickup for shares right now and for options in that sense as well. But there is a little bit of resistance here around like 105 to 106. So be a little careful when we come up to that, but it still has pretty good movement up to there if you wanted to like grab some calls that expire like in a couple months or something. I think that's a pretty good pickup right now.
Tom, check out Apple intraday. It just had like explosive movement over like the past like 10 to 15 minutes or so, but I think it looks pretty solid. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been starting to really move, Mike. I mean, I've definitely been monitoring it as well. It really broke out today above that 127.50 level that kind of posed like as the high of Friday. Looks like it might start to be pulling back now on the 5 minute candles. We'll have to see how it starts to move, but overall, great play out of Apple. And, hopefully we don't see a big crash down like we saw the past few days at open.
True that. And then we have Jerry saying BNTX. So this stock has been like just exploding over the past year. It went from $48 to highs of like 252. It is starting to pull back a little bit right now. When you look at that max weekly chart, it looks a little overextended in my opinion. Jerry, I'm not sure if you're looking at this for like a day trade or a swing or whatever. I can tell that looking at the options chain, it's not too liquid. So like, the spreads on some of these options are like anywhere from 90 to $100 or even more. So that's one thing I don't like about it, whether it's a swing, day trade, or whatever. It'll be really hard to trade options on this one. So overall, like I just wouldn't trade it just because the options are pretty illiquid. But it does have a pretty big support at like 220, and I think there's a good chance we retest that.
Yeah, I think we could start to retest that also. It looks pretty good. Honestly, like I think it's a good stock for the longer term. It's just the question is like how is it going to do in the short term? I think is the main question here. It looks like a pretty solid company, obviously, like on like the Max Daily and everything like that. But it's just obviously like the whole healthcare sector and everything like that has just gotten helped a lot also with COVID and everything. So just keep in mind, I think the price on this one is a little bit inflated. I think it could start to come down, like Mike said, and possibly test $200 or even lower. So I wouldn't grab it like for the long term right now, but I think that as it starts to fall, I think it'll have some good opportunities. And who knows, it might not fall. It might just keep going straight up. But just given like what we're seeing, I think it's pretty overextended on a daily level. And I just think that means that in the shorter term, we might see more of like negative movement.
I mean, like the problem when you're playing with illiquid options is like you can predict the move 100% like correctly, but you can still lose money just because like when you go to sell, like let's say an option is, let's say there's like a bid at like 490 and then the ask is until like 600, like like if you really want to get out, like you have to like really decrease your price. So like when you're playing with illiquid options, like it's just like it could be really hard to profit sometimes. So then we have Guy saying, how about Baba? So I was just looking at this one. I think it looks pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, it's actually bouncing right off the support that I had posted on my chart, which is just awesome to see. I really like to see that move to the upside there off of Baba. It was looking pretty bad, on the daily chart. Looked like it was going to start to really fall below that support and just fall off into oblivion pretty much. And I was hoping that it would start to turn around. And it's good. It's nice to see a nice green candle today while all these other stocks are going up too. Like we saw Amazon, which is one of their big competitors, post a nice candle today also. So it's just good to see overall out of like all those like e-commerce websites like Shopify, Baba, Amazon, of course, all going up at the same time. And I'm just glad to see Baba recovering because they've just gotten straight up destroyed by Chinese regulators over the past like few months. And it's just been a bad year for Baba overall, but hopefully they can start to really recover back. And I think that they will. They're a solid company with a solid backing, and they're definitely not going anywhere anytime soon, even if their stock is down a lot.
Yeah, so then we have Carlos saying Baba needs to break the downtrend resistance to show a reversal on the trend. And I'm with you, Carlos. Like, every time you look at Baba, like you think, all right, this is the time we're going to pop up, right? And it just gets rejected like almost every time. Over the past couple months, it's just been getting hammered to the downside. And like, there's just like a lot of negative momentum in general with the stock. But, in my opinion, it can't last forever. And I think that we will see a bounce back up pretty soon. But either way, I will definitely be watching this one.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's definitely gotten beat down so much that I think that we could start to see some pretty good recovery out of it if we start to catch some like nice green candles. Like you can see in the past how much or how steeply this stock likes to rise sometimes once it finally breaks out. And I think if we start to see that, it'll be a great opportunity.
All right, and then we have Bro Wall Street saying, how about Palantir? I'm holding calls that expire Friday. So, bro, do you know what strike they are? Because that would really help out. But I think Palantir looks pretty solid. The only thing that worries me about this trade is that your options expire this Friday. So the theta decay on those options are going to be brutal, especially if they're far out of the money. I'm a fan of Palantir for the long term. For the short term, it looks okay. It was trying to run up intraday. It kind of got rejected though. But yeah, it really depends on your strike price. You said your options expire this week. So as long as your options are in the money, I think that should be good. But your biggest problem will be time decay more than even direction.
Yeah, for sure. Hang on, Mike. I'm just updating a position
Yep,
really quick.
no problem. All right, perfect. He said the Palantir 26 strikes. So these options, I just ran the test on them. They have around a 20% chance of expiring in the money. So unfortunately, the odds are not in your favor. I would strongly consider rolling your position. So like if you really like Palantir for like maybe the next couple months or next couple weeks or even just in general, what you can do is you can like sell the weekly option and you can buy like a call option that expires like on August 20th. You know what I mean? Like it'll be more expensive, but the quality of the option will be so much better. So I really recommend that if you do like Palantir. If you still like Palantir, I like them for like the long term. For the short term, I think they look they're okay. They're not my favorite, but I don't think they're horrible.
Yeah, I think that they could start to be a lot better if they start to break out here above this resistance around $25. They've definitely been consolidating around it for like the past week or so. And once they break out of that, I think it could start to have a pretty good move, like we saw this morning out of a lot of these growth stocks. The big one was CRSR earlier this morning. We finally saw them break out and have a pretty big run. And I have a feeling that some of these other stocks, when they finally break out in that type of way, it's going to finally like have a pretty good upside potential.
Alrighty, and then we have Matthew asking about the Nasdaq QQQ. How's it doing?
Yeah, doing pretty good actually, up all the way up to 342. Recovered back up nicely, getting back up to like those pre-market highs. And whenever we go look at like the SPY, you can see how much the QQQ is really recovering up compared to the SPY. The SPY is not looking good by any means. If we go look at DIA, it's not looking good for them either. So really, tech is the ones flying up this morning, and overall just looking fantastic, honestly, with QQQ. It is catching some red candles here over the past like minute or two back to the downside, but overall it's been a very nice recovery. And like we've been seeing, Apple was really flying up this morning, hitting like 129.34. Microsoft is moving well this morning. Also, it is down, but you can see like how much recovery it was having for that little while. And it seemed like a lot of those stocks were trying to pop up, and now a lot of them are pulling back to the downside. So another up and down day for the market, Mike. I mean, we just cannot catch a solid break like to the upside. We've just been sitting here waiting for SPY to just pass above all-time highs, and it's just been failing to break out day after day.
For sure, it's been pretty choppy. It's not like a couple months ago you can like I mean relatively you could buy calls on SPY and have like a decent chance of being able to sell those calls for a profit. And even sometimes with puts when the market was a little shaky, but now it's like right when you think the market's about to fall, it just explodes back up, and then like right when it's like looking to break out, it just tanks back down. So it's just very choppy, and it's I think we're in for an interesting week to say the least, especially with the FOMC. But I am glad that tech stocks are starting to rise. Apple and Tesla are some of the leaders from the NASDAQ today. Adobe is also doing pretty well, and even Amazon and Netflix. So we are seeing momentum. It's just not like market-wide momentum. In a couple stocks, mainly tech stocks, we are starting to see it pop back up. But how's Tesla doing?
Yeah, Tesla's doing great. And I actually forgot about Adobe, Mike. They're actually breaking their all-time highs today, which is
Wow.
awesome to see. But Tesla is still doing decent. I think over the past few minutes, yeah, over the past few minutes, they started to come back down a little bit, but they were running up a ton this morning. But yeah, as of right now, it actually just broke that like 620 support that it had at the top there and is coming back down a little bit. But it did fly up so much it opened that this downwards movement still isn't terrible. I think that there's a pretty big support down here around 615 that I think as long as we hold that today, it'll be still be a pretty good play.
Sounds good. So, guys, let us know what stocks you're watching. Tom and I will cover them. You look at a couple stocks this morning, like Palantir is one of them. There's actually a lot that had this pattern, but you look at Palantir, had amazing momentum heading into market open. It had an amazing candle at market open. And then ever since, like, it's kind of tanking, and like there's a couple stocks that are doing that besides Palantir. Tilray is also doing this same exact setup, and it's tanking pretty hard. So, we're just like in a very interesting market because like, some stocks like they they can't get that momentum to like fully explode where we're starting to see some stocks starting to bounce back up. So very interesting market. We have Vicky saying fastly please. So FSLY. It looks pretty good, Vicky. You know, it's up around 4% today. I think the daily looks pretty good too. It's bouncing off of a pretty big support at like $50, and then even at that support at 40, I think it looks pretty good. What do you think?
What was the ticker?
Fastly.
FSLY. Yeah, I mean, I think Fastly's been doing pretty good actually, recovering up very well. There's that upper resistance around $60 though, which is getting a little bit scary. But we are starting to really rip back up towards that. I think in the short term, it looks like a pretty good setup, Mike, and it's starting to really recover up with some of these growth stocks.
All right, good stuff. And then let's see. So Tom, do you have any like stocks you're watching right now or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and check out AMD again. I've really been eyeing this one up, and it's just been failing to break out. And I've been trying to see if it's going to finally continue to the downside here or start to move back up. And just looks like it's been flat down here towards the bottom. NVDA, still watching them heading into that split. At least they're holding their ground today, which is good to see. I mean, they are still down though as well. And overall, it's just there's a lot of stocks going down today now. Even if we go back to like Apple's chart now on the 1 minute, Apple's even starting to pull back now as well. So it just seems like a lot of these stocks are just losing a lot of momentum that they had at open initially. So for right now, it's not looking too good. I'm just watching the SPY, hoping it can kind of like bounce off of this support at like 423.50, move back to the upside. And I'm just cycling through a bunch of these growth stocks, just looking for like some good type of movement. But there honestly isn't too much right now with everything starting to pull back.
All right, and then we have Hunter saying Fastly do be looking good. DraftKings is not looking good. Zoom it's pulling back a little bit too. I think NIO kind of has the same pattern. No, NIO's holding its ground. So yeah, DraftKings is pulling back a little bit. We might have to sell some puts on that one this week, Hunter. And then we have Click saying any suggestion for a long call option for NCLH. So are you looking at this for like a day trade, a swing trade, or like a longer term trade? That'll definitely play a huge role into the strike price and expiration selection. But let me run through the chain real quick to see if there's any options I like. Give me 1 second, Tom.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and whenever we're looking at like NCLH and a lot of these cruise lines, still keep in mind that they had a solid resistance up here around like 34.50, $35, and they did bounce off of that and start to come back to the downside. And then also, cruise lines are built off of news almost. So like right now, with them having to cancel, I've heard of anyways with like Carnival Cruise Line, they had to cancel some I guess I shouldn't say flights, some passages, I guess, into the some cruises, I guess I
Yeah.
should say, into the I don't know what to call it, but
Yeah.
yeah, they definitely had to cancel some cruises or some trips this summer, and that's going to definitely hurt their company still with all this negative COVID stuff. And I really want you to look here at their earnings down here at the bottom. You can see how they're getting like $2 per share, $1 per share, $2 per share. Then COVID hits. Now it's -2, -2, -2, -2. They're not profitable yet. And once that profit starts to come in, I think we're going to see a lot bigger moves out of these cruise lines.
Alrighty, so going back to Click's question on NCLH, there aren't any options I love on this one. I was looking at like the 30 strike calls for January 21st of 2022. That one's not bad. I was also looking at the September expiration at the 30 strike call. They're not like amazing, but they're not bad either. So yeah. But then we have Chris saying, good morning, Mike and Tom. Can you talk about CCL, please? Sure. So CCL goes hand in hand with NCLH. I think it looks decent / good in general. It's not like my favorite setup in the world right now, but I think it looks like decent / good. I think it's all about the type of option, or yeah, if you plan on trading options, I think it's all about the type of option that you select. Quality will be extremely important for a play like this. And honestly, I think shares might be the better way to go, depending on how these options are priced.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just not looking good in the short term. They fell below that $30 support. They are kind of having a support down here around like 29.45 or 29.50. But overall, it looks like a lot of negative movement still out of these cruise lines. And it's just not looking good, on the daily chart either. Like it's just starting to turn off. But I think I'm with Mike. I would definitely look at shares with it or just go like really far out, like with leaps, possibly like sometime in 2022 or something like that. I think that would be the way to go with CCL, just because it looks like in the short term, there's definitely going to be a lot of volatility, possibly back to the downside. And you just have to have some time just to cover yourself just for like maybe those couple of months of downside, even though they might have like 6 months of really great profits. So I think that's just the way you need to look at it, is more of like in a longer term sense here, because with these cruise lines, there's just so much news affecting them in the short term.
All right, Tom. So while we have the market kind of choppy slash coming down, we have AMC stock breaking their intraday high. AMC is now up just under 11% today, and it's starting to run up. So what's the next major resistance to watch out for?
Yeah, we're actually sitting right on it right now, around $55. Let's go to the 1 minute and see how close we actually are to it. So, yeah, we are like right on that. It looks like we bounced right off of it. So, we'll have to see how this looks like it's going to be moving today, but looks very good. Once we break above this, I'm definitely watching $60 next. That's going to be a huge level. And whenever we look at $60, it's hit off of it quite a few times. And I think that if we can break 60, it could keep going. I mean, it's up 10% already. Whenever this gets momentum into it, it really gets a lot. And I know that a lot of the Wall Street bets guys have been saying to, kind of cancel out all those other stocks and just to run into AMC again. So I'm wondering if that'll end up working out for them. And hopefully they can get enough volume in here to drive AMC up. And it's honestly not looking too bad on the daily either. It's trying to really come back up, but really watch for $60 because that's a solid resistance once we break 55. But whenever I go to the 1 minute, it looks like 55 is actually holding up a little bit intraday right now. So we'll have to see if we can break that later on.
Alrighty, and then we have Jerry saying CLOV is coming up too. Good eye there. I know it's down around 5% on the day, but like you said, like intraday it is coming up and it's bouncing extremely well off of that $14 support. So good eye there. And I don't think this one's too bad for a dip buy, Tom. Like I know it's definitely like a riskier play, but in my opinion, it's not a bad setup.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad setup either. As long as it holds this support and it keeps going back to the upside, I think it could be a pretty good play as well, especially seeing like AMC going up. Who knows? That could drive buyers back into CLOV and some of those other stocks that kind of got beat down, like Wish and WEN over the past few days as well. But it looks like overall, actually, Wendy's is actually posting a pretty good green day today. Also, so maybe CLOV, Wendy's, and AMC look like they might have a pretty good potential to keep popping today, possibly.
True that. And then Jorge was saying BNGO was popping too, which it definitely is.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love that stock.
yeah, it's definitely popping up. Gerard is saying Netflix exploded. It definitely did. One of the leaders of the Nasdaq today. Jerry's saying, would you sell puts on CLOV? I normally only sell puts on like really safe stocks, like really really safe stocks. That's just like my own personal preference. I would definitely consider selling puts on CLOV. The premiums will be a lot larger because the IV is 185%. Let me look at the chain real quick. So like you look at like the weekly chain. I mean, you can sell a put. I'm trying to think. Like if you go to like 11. I would consider it,
Yeah.
Jerry. I mean, I normally only do it on safe stocks, but yeah, I'd consider it.
My main problem with it, Mike, is that with all this like pre-market movement with it, if you sell a put that expires like this Friday, for example, at like let's say you sell a even like you said somewhere like an 11 or like an 11.50 put, if this thing gaps down to 7.50 and you get stuck short shares at 11.50, I mean, you're gonna hit pretty hard there. So yeah, you definitely got to be a little careful with CLOV. And I think it's best to do it like later in the week. Like if you're going to try to catch it like on a Thursday or like on a Wednesday with only like 1 day left till expiration, I think you have a lot better of a chance. But trying to like hold it all week, I think it has a lot of risk to it.
Indeed. And then we have Sean saying Neo is moving and grooving. Let's check it out. NIO is, yeah, it's definitely moving. Yeah, it's up around 3% today. It's rallying pretty hard. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's a great setup actually by NIO. I love to see it moving up, moving well off of that 46 resistance and just moving very nicely to the upside today. Nice recovery out of NIO on the daily too, looking very nice. And I think that it shows you that some of these growth stocks that are better fundamentally than others, you can kind of tell in their recovery how good they are because you can tell some of them are kind of still sitting down here at lows. Like if it was NIO, some of them might still be down here at like 35 or 37. But in some of these stocks cases like NIO, which have great fundamental backings, I think people have just been pouring into these stocks, just buying them straight up. And we're starting to really see that like with NIO, Zoom, and a lot of these stocks that have just been beaten down.
All right. And then we have Hunter saying, let's see, he sold the July 16th 40 strike puts for DraftKings. So, Hunter, you went pretty far out of the money. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I normally do too, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely a pretty good setup for short puts, and the premiums are pretty decent, in general. Jerry's saying the QQQ is red, was really enjoying the explosion this morning. I'm with you. Then we have Sean saying thoughts on Disney. Let's check it out. DIS is not really doing anything right now. I like it for like a longer term play, but like it's just one of those stocks where it's a slow mover. I like to compare it to KO sometimes. Like, the IV on Disney is 24%. The IV on KO is 18%. So they're pretty close. Like, it's not one of those stocks that are going to make you rich by any means. But it's just like a pretty nice, slow and steady, safe stock.
Yeah, I think it is too. KO is going to be pretty safe, but it does look like it's starting to pull back a little bit short term. And we're starting to see the Dow kind of come down as well. So just be a little careful of it in the shorter term. But for the longer term, it should be great. And people are always going to have this in their portfolio and just never let go of it. So people use it a lot for dividends and stuff like that. So it definitely is a solid backing. It's not going to like crash and burn, but it could go down a little bit in the short term.
True that. And then let's see. We have Carlos saying, have a green week, guys. Thanks for the great work you put out every day. Thank you so much for joining the stream and asking great questions, Carlos. We have Mike saying CLNE is up. Let's check it out. So I know we covered it a little bit earlier in the stream, but it definitely is moving. It looks like it has potential. It's not necessarily a play for me, but there is opportunity.
Yeah, I actually really like this setup, Mike. I think it looks pretty strong intraday. I love how it bounced off that 11 support and it's just moving on honestly like straight up this morning. Looks pretty good. Watch out for resistance coming up around like 1250 to like 1255. I think that's going to pose as a little bit of an obstacle today, but just be a little wary of that or $13 coming up. But it looks like it has a lot of good potential. And whenever you look at it on the daily, it's honestly recovered up pretty well, but we're just going to have to see how it keeps moving back because it's been so volatile. Like even over the past couple of days, it popped up to 15 and fell all the way back down to 10 pretty much. So it's definitely a quick mover, but it could have a lot of potential whenever it does start to run.
All right. And then Uber is starting to run up a little bit too. How's Lyft doing? LYFT. Oh, yeah, they're doing pretty good too. Lyft is doing really good. They're up almost 5% today.
Yeah, I wonder if this has like something to do with like their economy reopening or something like that, but it seems pretty good and they've been recovering up off of those like lows from COVID very nicely actually, and it looks like they're going to start to really break out. There's like a pretty big resistance close to like 59 or $60 and looks like it's just going to like just break right up through that. We're seeing a lot of stocks do lately. They're just starting to really break out. And once we start to really pass above 60, I think we're going to see a pretty good move out of like LYFT and going to Uber. Another good move almost at its resistance as well. They have a resistance up around like 51.50.
All righty. Russ is saying NIO is exploding. Yeah, it definitely is. Jerry's saying Intel is getting clapped. Yeah, it's down around 1% today. It tried to run up, but got rejected pretty hard at open. Tom, do you see any levels on this one, or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Intel is like right at a resistance right now around $57. And personally, if I was going to play Intel, I would never play options on it just because you can see how much up and down movement Intel has. And it could be quite a while before it starts to break out on this. I'm a pretty big fan of Intel. And like whenever we go back and look at their like long-term chart, they like to trade between ranges for a long time. And we can see how they do that actually. And I think that if you're buying it now for shares, it's a good time to buy it anywhere between like $50 and like $60. I think that's a decent time to pick up shares as long as you're going to average in. For example, if you buy it right now and Intel starts to fall down to like 50, then I would just average into them. But keep in mind that for the longer run, it's going to take probably a while before they get back up. There's a lot of competition and there's a lot of stuff going on with these semiconductor stocks. But right now, they're just right at that resistance around like $58, and they just kind of failed to break out. So I'd be a little wary of it. I think they could possibly come back down to the resist or to the support somewhere around like 53 or $54.
Tom, you got to check out Roku. They're actually starting to pop up pretty big. What are some like next resistance levels on it? They're really exploding intraday.
Yeah, they are. Look at that daily setup. It looks actually really good. I love how it's moving off their support as well. Just it's following a lot of these tech stocks that are really recovering up. And whenever we look at it on the 15-minute, it's starting to really break out. On the 90-day 15-minute, there was a high right around like 357, which we just flew above today. So like going forward, if I look at the 180-day 4-hour chart, I see a pretty solid resistance coming up around 370, and we're about 10 points away from there. So I think we could honestly have some pretty safe movement up to like 370. There is a little bit of resistance, like I said, around like 360 where we are now, but we have we have a lot of like momentum, and it looks like it's gonna keep going up. So we'll have to see if this momentum can keep up and if it can start to fly up somewhere towards like 370 or not. But overall, this has been a pretty good move today. So don't be surprised if it pulls back a little bit. It's already up like 3.7%, but I really like Roku, like for the short term and the longer term. I think that they're in a great sector and they're just a great company overall.
Sounds good. And then what are you thinking of like Mara and Riot? They're still exploding.
Yeah, I mean, those stocks are really flying up. I wonder if Bitcoin is still flying. Let's go check it out on the chart. And yeah, Bitcoin actually flew up to around 41,000, started to come down over the past couple of minutes, but they actually had a great breakout there above that like high of day of at like 40,800. They finally passed above that, kept going, and Mara and Riot are just following them to the upside, just with great moves. I remember earlier, like we were talking about Mara being up 15%. Now it's up 18.5% with a great move. Riot is even up 19%, so even higher out of this one. And honestly, great moves. I know a lot of people were like selling puts on them around the $30 support and then around the $20 support as well. So I think that, if you ended up getting stuck with shares, you were buying shares on that dip, goodbye. It was a pretty good opportunity. And people bought Bitcoin off that 30,000 support also. And it's just been a great move back and a great recovery. But I would not be surprised if we saw resistance over the next few days out of Mara and Riot and out of Bitcoin. Like if we go to Bitcoin on the daily chart here, you can see how much more room there is to recover back up to these highs. And just don't be surprised if we like catch a resistance somewhere around like 42,000 and then just consolidate very slightly. But I think that we're going to start to see a pretty nice recovery. It looks like a pretty decent dip here on Bitcoin. It held those supports. And honestly, like let me know in the chat if you guys are still bullish on Bitcoin or not, but it looks like it's holding its levels pretty good and like it's going to be going right back up like a lot of these growth stocks.
Good stuff. We have pins popping up. Pinterest, it's up around 2.5% today. I'm looking at the daily chart. It looks pretty decent overall. It's bouncing off support right around like 55, so even 60 you can say, but it doesn't look bad. Square's still, or actually let me double check. So how is Square doing? Square, oh yeah, they're still running up. That looks pretty good. Tom, do you have any last minute stocks or like anything you're watching for the rest of the day?
I'm still watching like a lot of those tech stocks that were running earlier, like Apple and a lot of the other ones. I'm just trying to see how much that they're going to continue up today or if they can continue. Because if they can, it'll be a pretty good move, like out of like Apple, Amazon, Netflix even. It looks like a lot of them are just really flying up today. And we're just going to have to see if that movement can continue or not. Because if not, it's going to start to like drag the QQQ back to the downside, which hasn't really had the best of days anyways. And, we're seeing the SPY still kind of falling off or consolidating down here at the bottom. And it's just one of those situations where we just have to see that continued movement. And hopefully like we can keep seeing it, because these tech stocks have been doing great, like Apple, Zoom, others, like Palantir even has been trying to pop back up, but it's just been having a lot of problems today. And it's definitely been choppy over the past few days. So really, I mean, the best stocks to watch right now are these growth stocks that are recovering back up. And the main ones I'm watching today, I think, out of those growth type of stocks are going to be Riot and Mara, just because Bitcoin is flying up and these stocks are just flying right in its footsteps. And they're just looking very strong today. And if Bitcoin can just continue its ascent to the upside over the next week, I think that these two stocks might be some of the best ones to kind of swing or to kind of trade, at least over the next week or two.
Good stuff. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the stream and asking great questions. Thank you so much, Corbin and everyone else. Sean said, I wish AMD did more than just stay in a range for the past couple months. And I'm with you. A lot of stocks have just been like consolidating or, falling or just doing nothing for the past couple months. And I think that there's a decent chance that we'll start to see a bounce back up. Looking at stocks like Zoom, Baba, Palantir, DraftKings, NIO, a lot of other ones too. So thank you guys so much for joining the stream. It will have another video for you guys later today. But other than that, have an amazing day.